Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for May. Because it's still May, but it's gloriously sunny outside. And going outside in the sun has a certain amount of risk involved in it. And you've really got to question yourself. Are you the type of person that likes to do you like a bit of risk? Are you the type of person that maybe takes the risk out in the sun? Are you the type of person that just boldly steps out in the middle of the road? Are you the type of person that maybe considers purchasing stocks and shares from potentially dubious companies in order to maybe hedge your bets, increase and lower their value, and then at the end of it, tap out with a small fortune? If you are that third person, then maybe you should be potentially looking at a game that's out on Kickstarter just now called Forks, and that is, well, the company's Radical 8. They're a little bit radical, but they're headed up by Mark Stockton-Pitt. So, hello, sir.
Hello, thank you very much. Brilliant introduction, as always.
We do try our best. How are you, first of all? This has been a session, hasn't it? Trying to get this sorted.
It's been a long time in the making, this, I think, of... It's been hectic at school the past few weeks where I work, but it's good to finally do this. Yeah.
Yes, it's like the sun is shining. I can't hear the birds because of the double glazing, or the ice cream van, so the kids can't get an ice cream. So it's all good. It's always all good. You've got the Kickstarter is doing well.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm taking a look at it just now. And you set off with kind of like the dizzying goal of about £250.
Yes.
And it's currently like it's £1,605. Now I'm going to try and do the maths here. So it's almost six times.
Yes.
Approaching 7 times.
It's
the actual goal.
It's doing phenomenally better than I thought it would.
Why?
I was very pessimistic about price. I think, obviously, it's my first Kickstarter, and my main goal going into this, there were two things. One was release a brilliant game that people would love to play. But the second goal, which I think was more important to me, was not do a glory to row. And essentially everything I did beforehand, I spent a lot of time on the game, play testing it, designing it.
Yeah.
And then probably just as much time looking at all the different manufacturing options, all the different shipping options, everything I could, just to make sure that no matter what happened, I wasn't going to end up really poor. And so I managed to get the manufacturing price quite low. I was reading the Stonemaier blog, which obviously a lot of people who do Kickstarters read about. What should you set your goal as? And it's just, I was thinking, I'm going to put some money into this to make sure I've got some copies to sell afterwards. So if it does fund, I can sell copies at conventions. Then it's thinking, how much am I going to put into that? Therefore, how much will I need to go with that to make it viable? And given, like I said, everything I'd looked at, I thought £250. Yeah, I can do. I can put some more money into that. That's fine. I can make it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I could have gone a lot higher, but there was no need to. Like, I think if that's your goal, that's your goal. So yeah, and then people.
So you want one of these people. You want one of these people that kind of said, right, I'll I'll set the goal at 250, so I could then say, "Oh, look, we're fully funded within 7.5 minutes," kind of thing. It basically, the 250 means that if you just funded at 250, everybody was getting their game.
That was
kind of regardless.
If it hit 250, I could make it, send it out to people, and then I'd still have some left over to sell at conventions, to still turn a small profit at that point, and definitely not a profit considering the spent costs. But those are sunk costs at that point that, you're not going to get those back if you don't fund at all. So it was, I did have some people, there's some comments on Facebook saying, that's very low, but there's a lot of things, like I say, it's putting in the research and thinking, that's all I need. The other issue was, I was very pessimistic. I put the promotions out there, gave it to people, but I was still thinking, well, how many people can I rely on to back it within the first few days? Because that's it, isn't it? It's, well, thank you very much.
Don't. I was interested because I played it. I mean, we actually met. We met at Aircon.
Yep.
Where you were at the kind of the playtesting kind of tables.
Oh,
and then we both went on and we played Mr. Naylor's game, the Magnate, the first city, and that was a game and a half, and it was very, very fun, and kind of like I had a really, really good time. Except my brain, it must have been that middle to the end of the day because my brain was just going.
Yeah, I think your dice rolling was pretty poor as well, if I remember correctly.
That's the one we take a picture of the dice because I think I managed to roll about 5 ones or so. It's like there's no technically, you've got more chance of getting struck by lightning while wearing a duck than kind of rolling the dice. That I think because it was.
I really felt for James because I think he was watching you thinking, "Oh God, what are you going to say about it now? What are you going to say about it now?" And I thought, "Oh God," because I was having a fun time. I was getting decent rolls, building my stuff.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was like living in some kind of shanty town because I just couldn't build really anything at all. It's like I had 6 dice. Yeah. I had to roll like 3s or above or something like that just to decide.
2 4s, 5s, or 6s. That was it.
Yes, and I just rolled 1s.
Yeah.
Just rolled 1s all the way through. Taking things back a bit because we're gloriously out of structure, which is fantastic. But it is, it's a sunny day, and structure doesn't always matter. How did you get involved in kind of like the kind of the hobby kind of thing? So, what is it you do kind of away from the board games? What are you doing during?
I'm a maths teacher.
Right, okay.
I'm a maths teacher, and it's maths teacher and board gamer. Those are the 2 things really. I teach maths during the day, board game by night. A terrible superhero.
It's kind of like Batman.
Yeah, exactly. I teach maths, and you'll probably see that in Forks and some of the. Obviously, it's a heavy number game, but I play a lot of board games. There's a York club called Beyond Monopoly. Play there a lot. Been going there for many years now, actually, quite a long time. And I think it's one of those things. You play a lot of games growing up, then. You stop playing at university, video games, and just stop playing board games. And then you find I think you play a modern game. And the first one I remember playing, it's many years ago now, it's before I was a teacher, was Bang. Bang was a game that actually got me back into gaming. And after that, it was you just go through them ravenously, don't you? You rediscover them, and you just play everything. Then join a games club. And that's it. Just play loads and loads of board games. So that's how I got back into board gaming. And then designing. It's one of those things where I feel like, to me, I want to make things. You play a game, I want to make a game, I want to design, I want to do something like that. And so started making games, and then one of them, Newspeak, got picked up by Inside the Box. And so that was absolutely fantastic. That was back at Aircon. It's one of the first Aircons, actually, when they were down in Bradford.
It's really funny because I saw somebody pitching to Peter at Aircon, sitting down and kind of going through the game. I sat down and went, "All right, Peter, how you doing?" And he's like, looks at me, look at his business face, and he's pleading eyes, saying, "Please leave me alone. I'm trying to be professional here." And there was a guy kind of like pitching the game at the same time. I think the most interesting thing about Newspeak, the first campaign, because there was a first campaign, and there is a story behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that it's the first kind of campaign about kind of a big brother that was affected by cave-ins.
Yes. Because
there was a bit, I think, and we should talk about it quickly, because basically there was, and Peter was on the show to talk about it, there was a couple of kind of outstanding issues with Subterra at the time, and Peter, decided at the time he was going to jump in and launch Newspeak, and then ended up kind of cancelling kind of Newspeak. And I think everybody at the time was concentrating on kind of Peter's thoughts, his feelings, his emotions, how he kind of felt. I don't remember hearing a peep out of you. I mean, that must have been a bit of a... How did you feel at the time?
It's a tough one. Well, it was me and actually one of my friends, Fiona. She came into the fold. So I came up with the initial idea, then she came into the fold, worked on it together, and we pitched it together. And we actually went down to London for the initial launch event. It was straight out of school, down to London on the train from the north to this launch event.
St. Trinian's does board games.
Yeah. We were walking around, and it's funny because we sat down to play the game and to see the changes, because we were involved at the start with a lot of it, but just because of the work, but also the distance. It's really hard to do that kind of thing, through Skype and over the phone, in terms of designing and play testing. So it's mostly, Anthony took it and ran with it. And we got down there, we were playing, going through all the changes, and we're talking to people. Of course, no one knew who we were. So it was great. We were able to hear people talk about it, and, some people loved it. I remember one person who was complaining there were no minis, which is, Kickstarter in a nutshell. I don't even know where you'd put them in a game.
So I've got your mini right here.
And it was a really good evening. And I do remember talking to Peter, and he was very confident. He was giving me the reasons. This is why we launched it in the morning, so people in the UK will back it, and then people in America will back it, and the rest of it. And I do remember throughout the day, because I was I was listed on the collaborators on the Kickstarter page, and throughout the day, I had to mute my emails and just not check them, because there were so many emails coming in asking about Subterra. And so I think that was the first inkling that actually something's not quite right here. And then obviously it wasn't going as well as they wanted to, and that was pretty obvious the next day. And then they pulled out, and I was gutted, I think is fair.
Yeah.
But I think I'd anticipated it when I started to see those emails and started to see the funding slow down. I thought, okay, it's not going to reach the heights they want. Are they going to can it and relaunch it? Are they just going to let it go and see where it ends up? Or are they going to can it and maybe not relaunch it, which was always an option? And I'm glad they went for the option they did. I think, Peter's learned a lot from it. He knew he had to get Subterra sorted to come back stronger. And it's a fantastic game. So I'm really good.
Would you have brought it back to Kickstarter? Was there an option because I'm looking for it just now. Is there an option for you to have taken it back away from ITB and say, I'm just going to do it myself if that's okay? Was that ever a kind of an option, or did you just say, right, okay?
I think it's something which, if they weren't going to launch it, it's something I would have looked into, but it's not something I wanted to do with that game. And the terrible thing, which I should not admit at all, is I lost the contract. Actually, I've been looking for it in my house. I thought, I should look at that, and can't find it anywhere. So, in terms of can I take it back? I hope Peter doesn't listen to this, because I don't know where it is. I'd have to, that's one thing that would have been on the contract I signed and foolishly forgot to take a photo and copy of. But I didn't want to. A game like that, it's very art intensive, and the changes they've made to it, some of the things Annie's put in especially are fantastic. The pacing and the way there's not this runaway leader issue with it now. It is really good. So I think if they weren't going to launch it at all, I would have taken it back. But I don't know what I would have done with it.
In all fairness, I think sometimes things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And whatever, as I say, Peter was on and we spoke about, in fact, he was actually coming on the show to talk about kind of like the Newspeak campaign just before and he says, well, actually, and that's when we did a very kind of heartfelt episode with him talking about the challenges that he had with Subterra and stuff like that. But then, obviously, Newspeak then came back, and it did fund. It was the right time, and people, everything seemed to have been squared away with Subterra, and you did kind of quite well. Did that, in its own turn, did that kind of push you to then say, right, let's get Forks on the go then?
It was, I think the initial working with Peter. So I went down to Inside the Box, and obviously I visited them and I worked with them, and I saw what he was doing. And I think there's a lot of designers make a lot of games. You pitch your games, and most of them don't get made. And there's one thing which I was finding was you'd give a publisher a game, and they would take it, and you'd have to wait a long time to get stuff back to hear anything back from them. And after visiting Inside the Box, I thought, this is something which I could actually do. I thought, seeing how they operated, I might be able to do it myself. And I'm always one to push myself. I want to try and do something new. And I thought, this is it. I'll give it a go. So I wouldn't have launched Forks or anything like that if it hadn't been for meeting Inside the Box. I talked to a lot of designers. I feel like designers tend to congregate together and talk to other designers, especially at conventions. And it is a case that there's some people, they have these really good games, and for whatever reason, they feel like they can't go with them. So, that they don't want to do the Kickstarter thing. And I think that's fair enough if you don't want to do it. But
yeah,
everybody, if you want to do it, there's nothing really there. If you can put in the time, put in the graft, there's nothing there that can stop you. And so I thought, I'll give it a crack, see if it works. And it did. So thank you, I think, for Inside. Thank you for Inside the Box anyway, for doing a great job with Newspeak. But, I do feel like working with them, it inspired me to go out on my own.
He's very enthusiastic.
Oh,
Peter is kind of like... He's there's an awful lot of energy to him, and he's very, very kind of friendly and energetic, and it's an infectious kind of energy that's to him. And you get the feeling that he's going to get stuff done. He's not 100% sure how it's going to all come together, but he's definitely 100% sure it's going to get done one way or another. There's some kind of determination to kind of, to continue to bring the games to it, and it's kind of manifested itself in the other things that, ITB are kind of doing.
I was going to say, because I know he draws a lot of people together. He's doing the SN I don't know if he still does that, but I remember when he was, and it's, I think he does a lot of good. So yeah, that,
yeah. Did Forks come before Newspeak, or was Forks kind of like a muck around kind of 5 minutes? I'll make that one day, or was it, or did it come as a direct?
Yeah, they both started almost from the same place of trying to strip back things to really simple versions. So I think design is your first games are just this total mess of mechanics, which lasts for 3 hours, and they started to streamline things, strip things back.
Mm-hmm.
And Newspeak was essentially, what if you had to communicate with somebody, but the other people around the table had to not understand what you were saying, so you had to talk in code. That was basically how it started, and it developed from there. Forks began as it began as a twist on a traitor game, where the basic mechanic of drawing cards and then giving them to another player, them keeping a card and putting one in the middle, which is the base mechanic of Forks. But the idea was that there was one company, and the good players had to keep the company in profit, and the players who were the traitor had to try and sink the company. So, the traitor wanted to put in low cards, and the other player wanted to put in high cards. And the idea really just came about, how can you get information to determine who is a traitor and generate arguments? So I thought that sounded good. So made a very rough copy of it. Didn't quite work just because there weren't enough choices in what to do. If you were good, you pretty much had one thing you should do. If you're bad, you should pretty much have one thing you should do. So went on the back burner for a bit, and then I brought it back out as I think a couple of years later. I was doing one of those 18-card micro game contests. Can you make a game from 18 cards on a Board Game Geek? And so I adapted it slightly for that, and it was better. It was a lot better. And this time every player was out for himself. Then I adapted it again, and I actually, the thing that gave me the inspiration to change from one company to multiple companies was the Wibel deck. You must have spoken to Bez, and its Wibel ++ deck was looking for new games. You can play with that deck, which is a fantastic. I really like that pack of cards. It's just a brilliant creator. It's like, here's this fantastically designed pack of cards, make some games with it. And so I made a version of Forks, which worked, and it's very much akin to what we've got now, actually. And it was fun to play, but it just didn't quite work with the numbers. I sent it to Bez. Said some people loved it, but it was just a bit too chaotic with the deck as it was. And that's when I thought, actually, if I change this, I can make it with the deck that's specific to it. Choose the cards. This could actually be a different game. And my first thought with so I changed that, and I got the deck, and I thought that maybe again pitching it to a publisher. But then I thought, actually, I don't want to do that. It's a good game, and I don't need somebody that I've played this enough times, that have played it with people enough times to know that it's a really good game, and it's also small enough. And in terms of the artwork requirements, I thought this is something that if I'm going to self-publish anything, if I'm going to start a company, start publishing games, I want to start with something small. I want to start with something where I'm not going to go bankrupt if it all goes wrong. I don't need to, work with China, which, that would have been a nightmare if I'm given the tariff situation. That, it's one of those things I can keep it.
Thank you. I saw that, and then I just went, there's going to be a lot of angry people, and it's like, because they were asking at work about it, and it says, but surely, do folk buy games from China? It says, no, that's not the point. It says that pretty much every single Kickstarter I know, bar probably yourself and maybe Emma from MR Studios, they get their stuff kind of printed over in China. which it doesn't affect us because we won't have the tariffs. Well, it might potentially affect the UK guys if China turns around and decides, well, that will just put our prices up across the board, and it's definitely going to affect all these people that are getting their stuff manufactured and have just got their prices through.
It's going to affect. I think we won't have it direct, but there's going to be a knock-on effect for any, because they're not going to shift all of the cost onto American Kickstarters, are they? They're going to try and shift some of that, onto the UK. They're not going to say,
put it across everyone.
People in the UK rather than Americans, because they, people will kick off. So when I saw that news, I thought, I'm glad I went with something where it's printed in Europe, and the thing that really helped me actually was in terms of getting the cost base down and everything and manufacturing was the boxes, because lidded boxes are really expensive. I was looking around to find manufacturers for those, and the box, the single tuck boxes, they're cheaper. They're a lot cheaper, but I thought actually I do want something lidded, and I met Jackson Pope a few times, and on his website, he does the whole
Flick Fleet.
Yeah, Flick Fleet, and he's handcrafting the boxes for Flick Fleet. So I was looking up, how does he do it? How does he handcraft boxes? And I got in touch with him, I've been practicing handcrafted boxes, and they're lovely. It's one of those things where speaking to people, and again, it's talking to other designers, and it's something that they never think to do, because most people, it's you get the game, you choose a single manufacturer, and they're going to make everything. That's it. They make everything, send it to you. And again, just trying to, like I said, my pessimism, thinking, well, hold on, what if I only sell, 25, 30 copies? What am I going to do? Meant that I thought, well, hold on. The cards from this company are the cheapest, but their boxes are pretty rubbish. And a lot of people think that. I think you've got the box there, and it falls apart. So it's sourcing things from places, put them together myself. And it's all this. I can do it. I've got all the materials. I've practiced it. It's I can't remember what the first question was now, but that,
is it Germany? Is it Germany where you're getting them printed? Then are you getting them printed in the UK?
I'm getting
Italy.
the cards printed. Yeah, cards printed in Italy. Ludo cards. It's I was looking at getting them done in the UK, but it's a price factor at that point. It's about twice the price for the card printers here, and then the boxes. Like I said, I can make them myself, but actually, given the amount of people that are backing, I'll probably just get them produced elsewhere for the lidded boxes, and then put it all together myself. I did have somebody on Facebook tell me repeatedly that he said it's a bad idea. You can get things printed on demand. Just get things printed on demand, and it's a kind of unsolicited advice where you think, actually, I've researched this a lot more than you. I know what I'm doing. Trust me. But yeah,
I think it's kind of really, we're in a kind of a difficult area. I think we're going to start to see a little bit more manufacturing kind of heading away, not away from China necessarily, but actually heading back into kind of UK bound. It's almost like I don't know if there's been enough print houses out there that looked at the board game situation and thought, technically this could be something that could make us a bit of money, especially with inevitable delays and stuff like that, and quality. And I've had people that have had their stuff manufactured in China and said, look, if I did it again, I'd probably go to Europe instead, based on the kind of the prices and based on the kind of the cost itself. Let's talk about gameplay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me talk about gameplay, because your claim was any Scottish idiot could teach people how to play Forks. So here I am in my idiotic form. Basically, the idea of Forks is that you will have there's a set of cards on the table which dictate the kind of the market prices for the stock of the different companies that are there. Okay, you yourself will have a hand of cards which will probably contain at least cards from each of the companies. Each of these cards will have a number on them which basically dictates the stock value. What will happen is you'll have a draw pile, and every round you will ideally it's when we played it was three, ideally it was 3 players, but what you'll have is you'll draw a card, and one card you will you'll keep. You'll pass the 1 card or the 2 cards on to somebody else. They'll decide which card they're going to have, and then the 3rd card is basically used as the market card that gets added to the market. And what it effectively does is it will help to either lower or increase the price of one of the companies. And as you play and as you get towards the end of the game, when everybody's kind of played the cards and the kind of the trading time has finished, you'll then be able to see who has got the highest, which has got the highest value, which has got the lowest value. And I believe that what happens is the lowest value company is basically scrubbed and gone. And then you've got to basically, you base your kind of how you win is based on the companies that you've got left in your hand, which are still viable, who's got like the best, the highest valued kind of card within that collection. Is that kind of right, or is it almost right?
Yeah, you're almost right. There's a few things that the smallest company or the lowest value 2 companies, they're not scrubbed. It's much worse. They're worth negative points. So actually, it's a lot more brutal. So rather than thinking, I'll take that's worth nothing, your options are usually, if you take a 9 that's going to be the lowest company, you get negative 9 points. It's significantly worse than 5. So it is a lot more vicious when you pass the cards around. And then you sum them at the end. But otherwise, you've got it.
There you go. And I've got nothing to do with the design of the game. But it was incredibly kind of intuitive and very, very quick at the time. In fact, it was you, it was me, and it was another just random gentleman who agreed to sit down and play. And it was one of the things within about, it must have been a couple of minutes, you knew what you were doing. And then it was a case of, am I overcomplicating this, or am I just, no, you take this card, this goes into the central market, and then we keep playing until the kind of the cards finish, and then we can, and you could affect the market, or sometimes you decided to play a card so you would affect the market, and sometimes you had to hold on to the cards to say, right, if this is the ones that are the highest rated, then I want to make sure all my cards are the best, and it was very, very, it was a bit tense, to say the kind of least. There's slight different versions of the game that you've introduced as well. You've introduced additional kind of cards, and is it additional mechanics as well that you've introduced too?
Yeah. During some of the later play tests, I think some of the play tests wanted a bit more control over it, and so we introduced there's 2 different variants: merge or swap. Because we tried playing with one rule whereby when you pass 2 cards, you can keep both of them and discard or invest any card from your hand. So that way, your hand can change throughout. If you've got some really bad choices at the start, you can kind of undo them later on. So there's a bit more control there, and you can think a bit more long term. So we played with that, and it was fantastic. We played it. We thought it's gone from being just a knockabout game where you don't maybe need to think to something where actually you can think about it. And then we tried another variant. So we did that. We played it a few times. We thought this is really good. Probably going to go with this. Then we did another variant whereby when you draw 3 cards, you can swap one of them with one of the cards already down, which means that when the companies are out and you think, actually, I want to take from that company, you can take that card, or you can sync companies. You can put more companies in play. And at this point, again, you had more control, but the cards in your hand stayed in your hand. They didn't change. And so at this point, it was more control on your turn, but maybe less overall long control. But they're both of them were a lot of fun. We tried them together, just too much. So that's why you can play with one of them or the other. They've both played, despite the mechanics staying almost identical, but for that one rule, they actually feel very different. And it's just one of those things where, you can play, I think I've called it strategy against tactics, because one of them is you can think long term. I mean, it's a short game, but you can think, you're going to have a few goes in it. You can think, I'm going to do this turn, and I might be able to get rid of it next turn or the turn after. And the other way, when you draw your card, you can swap the companies out. And so you can actually think tactically, I want to sink this company for whatever reason. So they're both brilliant, but when we played them together, we just couldn't get it. It was just too much. So, yeah, I think it's just really nice changes.
How have you found marketing it from a point of view of being... I mean, did you jump on the Newspeak coattails at all when you were kind of introducing it? Because I know that you kind of mentioned it in passing that you designed.
I did. I think
Newspeak.
Like when you're first setting out, if you're saying, I want to start publishing games. This is a game that I want to publish. No one's heard of it. Nobody knows you. You need something. You need some kind of, actually, I've done this. Actually here I have been published, or I've been involved in this. Almost an air of legitimacy, or something. Just people in and say, okay, I have done this. Listen to this, and so I did use it then. It's a very different game, and I didn't want to dwell too much on it because I don't want to say, if you like Newspeak, you'll like this, because they're completely different. There's that wouldn't make any sense at all. So I did it to begin with, especially talking to podcasters like yourself or anybody else who might have heard of Newspeak, or might think, okay, you're not just someone who fancy, you're not somebody who's going to chuck up an idea Kickstarter with no pre-thoughts. But after that, it's just after that, it's just been me posting as much as I can on Facebook and Twitter, which is pretty much that's what I've done a lot of, and it's actually that's come really well because I was looking at where a lot of the people who've backed the project have come from, and there's been a few places, but almost all of them are, there's people who I know in real life, people from the Games Club, but local reach can only go so far. A lot of it has to be through social media, and so that's where it's come from.
So what's the price on the tin then? What's the price of entry? If I want, what is the minimum share buy-in in order to get your hands on a copy of Forks?
So the pledge is £12, and that includes postage in the UK. It's extra postage for US and EU, and all over the world you got to pay extra, but UK it's just £12, including postage. For
people unaware in the States of the conversion rate, that only works out to be $3. So just feel free to kind of pledge away. Get 15 copies. It's only going to cost you $9. No, that's not true at all. But in terms of kind of, I don't know, in terms of accessibility and how easy it is to get to the kind of the table, what it struck me as is I can see it being one of these games that you'll either say, well, let's play a couple of rounds while we wait for everybody to kind of turn up, or it might be one of these games which is almost like a socially kind of casual game. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, is that I can see you kind of like saying, okay, there's 6 of us at the table, 3 of us play tabletop, 3 of us don't normally bother, what's this all about, and you can have, a couple of games each and just slowly introduce people to it. It was fairly accessible from that point of view. And also it's The art itself is quite striking as well, in terms of it's simplistic. I think there's a tendency sometimes when people do like their first kind of small project, especially if it's maybe a card game, is to kind of try and kind of emulate the Sistine Chapel in terms of the art, in terms of the artwork. So you end up with cards that have got very, very busy kind of real estate on them. And it can sometimes detract from you actually going, oh my goodness, look at how complicated these cards are. And I think the card presentation for getting somebody to go ahead and play is kind of is very, very important. In terms of going forward, I mean, this is going to fund. I mean, as I say, it's funded. We're not having a, go ahead and pledge. If you pledge, how long have you got to run now? Is it still about 20 days? Or something?
It's gonna finish the week after the UK Games Expo. So I think it's June the 11th. Although I need to check the calendar for that. But yeah, there's plenty of time.
Okay. What's the plans next? I mean, is this kind of? I mean, obviously not obviously, but to get Newspeak kind of going through its journey and get it funded, and then that must have given you a bit of confidence. But then to push it forward and you to kind of put out your own game, and for people to go, well, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and back that. Now let's make no bones about this. You got 1,600 people back, £1,600 going through at £12 a back.
Yeah. It's that. If you look at the raw monetary amounts, obviously compared to other Kickstarters, it's a bit small, but it's 150 people, I think, or it's which is I genuinely astounds me. So after this, what I want to do, there's actually two things I wanted to do. The first one was I wanted to do a new game, and I mean a game that has not been done before at all, because a lot of games, and I'm not criticizing any games here because most games are fantastic, but they are refined versions of other games, and I want to create something which isn't a refined version. No, I want it to be refined, but I want it to have a mechanic that is not used in any other game. That's my goal, and I've got a thought in mind about that. So
you're not bringing algebra into board games, are you?
Not algebra, not maths. No, nothing that comes from a classroom. I want to.
They'll be sitting there, kind of like being a maths teacher, saying, "Oh, let's bring algebra into board games because you folk are having just far too much fun. Let's get some AB squared in there, and let's see how you do well."
I think some people would. Very few, but some people. Now, my plan. I want to make a game whereby it actually uses the location where you are, as in the game is played in maybe different rooms, and I've actually been working on it for a while, and it's something where I think actually it is going to be new, and it might be this glorious failure that in playtesting just falls apart, but I want to do something that is different. It is just completely different to everything else that is out there in terms of gaming, which is one of those grand statements that people make. But actually, that's one thing I want to do. It's what I've been working on, and then I'm working on forks, but it's always been there as the goal, essentially. The other thing I want to do is when I was at Aircon, there was another guy there playtesting a game, which was I've been thinking about it more. I joined in a playtesting session. It's called Die of the Dead, and it wasn't like the finished product, but there was something to it, and he doesn't know this yet. I need to tell him, but I do want to help him with that. I don't know if any publishers have picked it up, but I've been thinking more about it, and I think I could see this game being big. And I thought, people Peter helped me. He took Newspeaks on, and this was before Subterra got big. So, it had a couple of, I think Statecraft had funded on Kickstarter. And I just think, well, this guy has made this game. It's definitely something to it. So if I can help him, even if it's just play test with him before he pitches it, if he wants to go for big publishers or in some way, it's that kind of thing, just when you see someone with a really good idea or nice game or something they've been working on, helping them out.
Cool.
Yeah.
If people want to, if people have listened tonight and they said, they want some help from you.
Yeah.
If they're like, Mr. Stockton-Pitt, did they do that? See, when they talk to you, do they pronounce the second part of your surname like it's spelt with 15 eyes?
They do. There's one lad who you sounded exactly like, actually, from my old school, because he used to say, he always used to put the emphasis on the eyes in Pitt every time. Yeah.
Mr. Stockton-Pitt, can you help me? This isn't working out, this equation. I keep getting x equals minus 72.
People can ask me about that, because I can definitely help with equations.
They should definitely help with that. But if we're not, so in other words, so if people are interested in getting help with maths, or math if you're American, it's a plural thing. It's not just not just one thing in maths. It's not, there's lots of things in maths. That's why we don't call it math. It's maths. Sort it out. Anyway, where do you exist on the internet webs if people want to talk to you about mathematics and games?
The best thing is probably my web, radical8games.com.
Cool.
Bit of maths there. And Facebook, either Mark Stockton-Pitt or Radical 8 Games. It's on Facebook as well. Both of those things. There's my email on the website, and obviously Facebook. Just contact me, and I'll do what I can. If it's about starting out in Kickstarter, because I do feel like I am starting out in Kickstarter, and I've read everything, and I've tried to follow all the advice, and I think it's worked well for me. So I can definitely share.
So far.
so far. But yeah, absolutely. No, I'd love to hear from anybody who wants any help with anything. Absolutely.
Excellent. What we'll do is, as normal, we will take these links and we will put them in the show notes so that we have got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, just go to the Googles and you search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us in various places, worn out places, worn out faces. You can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards, on Facebook at We're Not Wizards, on Instagram at We're Not Wizards. If you put a .com on the end, you'll find our website. If you put a blogspot in front of that, you'll get our blog. You can find us in all the places like the podcast catchers that use the word pod, or they use the word cast. Except Spotify, which uses neither, but we are on Spotify as well. We're on YouTube too, but that doesn't have pod or cast. But that's nothing to do with podcasts, it's to do with videos. But, that is how it is. If you want to support us, there's a couple of ways you can support us. There's merch you can buy, but you don't have to help us by giving us money. You can just tell somebody else that we actually exist. Because the way that the show grows is by telling other people, tell people that you like, tell people that you don't like, that hate board games, and just kind of push them in the direction of the podcast, and because they'll end up wasting 45 minutes of their life, which is always a good thing. If you do like us a little bit more, jump onto Apple Podcasts and consider giving us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us the square root of 100, because it'll make us big-headed. But don't give us the first prime number, because it'll make us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. Well, no. In fact, if there was a 5, a 4 and a 6, then the average would still be 5. So I'm taking this math, so I hope you're appreciating this, by the way.
I am. I hope
because it's average.
First prime number, you did mean 2, didn't you?
Is it?
Yeah, it's not 1. 1's not prime.
Oh, stop it. See, you ruined everything now. It's the person who's not been average, but went a bit maths teachery on me in the end. It's the rather wonderful, rather fantastic Mr. Mark Stockton-Pitt.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming on, sir. I really, really appreciate it. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not mathematicians. Are we wizards. Are we wizards? Mark?
No.
No. Definitely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye.
Thank you very much.
So it's a goodbye from Mark. Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. And as Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke Skywalker, don't be playing that rubbish card game. Use the forks. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.